Hello.
Hi. Happy
We
post-Thanksgiving.
Yes, it's great to be back, and we are excited to welcome you all to part two with Daryl Davis. If you missed our first conversation, don't worry. We're going to edit this afterwards so that you'll get to see all of it in one final place and piece. And you'll be able to find it on Eva's website and also speaker casting.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and watch the trailer to Daryl's film again, as it just really sums up what he's all about in case we have any new viewers. Hopefully, it will give you an idea of why we chose him as our guest. So here we go.
Two of the greatest speeches ever given in this country were the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln and the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. Excuse me a minute. This is where he stood and gave that famous speech.
Black men and white men.
All you have is an etching in the concrete. There's no plaque, there's no sign. Millions of people trample all over that, not even realizing how important that spot is. He says, I have a dream. I call this stepping on the dream.
I'm Daryl Davis. I'm a musician, actor, author, and a lecturer. People always say to me, Daryl, how can you have this stuff? Why don't you burn it? As shameful as it is, you don't burn our history, regardless the good, the bad, the ugly. And the Ku Klux Klan is as American as baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet.
Hey, Frank, how you doing, man?
Hey, Gary.
Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Here's my great Titan robe. You want me to put it on?
Yeah.
We've got members as young as 18, and we also have junior Klan members.
We would fight to the last bullet for our people.
Okay, so what can we all do together as a nation?
Help save the white race.
Help save the white race.
Goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
How can you hate me when you don't even know me? Look at me and tell me to my face why you would lynch me.
This country's been through a lot.
It still has a long ways to go.
An awful long way, as news will tell you.
I'm mad. We should all be mad.
We have a society that has determined that we should fear the black man.
Give that person a platform. Allow them to air their views, and people will reciprocate. I never set out to convert anybody. In my quest, some of them ended up converting themselves.
Hey, this is somebody I can relate to.
Incredible.
Absolutely.
So with that, we will add Daryl to the stage.
There he is, the man.
Hey there, how are you all doing?
We're so good. We're so happy you're here with us again.
I'm happy to be here with you all.
We're going to pick up right where we left off, but first I have to tell you something that happened to me right after the last time we spoke.
Uh-oh, hope it wasn't my fault.
Well, kind of. Professor Jenny Erickson, AKA my daughter, called me and said, or texted me and said, guess who's in the textbook that I'm using today in our class about civil dialogue? And then there's the picture of the textbook, and Daryl Davis is there, black and white, with a very, very, very interesting, lesson about this whole thing. And I'm just like, wow, he's everywhere. Are you in a lot of textbooks? Do you know that?
I know that I'm in a lot of books. I've heard about a textbook, but I've not seen the textbook.
Okay. I'll send you the picture she sent me.
Please do.
Yes.
I'm dying to find out how that
and the picture of the cover so I can see what it is.
Will do.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, diving right in and going back to where we left off, you have said that nothing gets resolved until opposing sides sit down and talk about it. And most of us may never face the kinds of extreme aggressions that you've had, but your lessons, they serve as great examples of the positive change that can happen when people have the courage to listen to one another. And how is it that you've had such amazing outcomes like this?
I think, to be honest with you, I think it's due to the travel that I started doing as a small kid, as a child, with my parents, traveling all around the world.
being exposed to different people, different colors of people, different ethnicities, religions, cultures, etc., and all of that shaped, who I became. I think with that early exposure, I realized that we all are human beings, right? But I will say this, and I hope I'm wrong, but I do feel the need to say it. Perhaps if I had grown up here in my own country and never traveled, never had that exposure, would I be doing this work today? Or would I be staying as far away from people like that as I could? It could be that, you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking about this today.
Right. And that would be so sad. But it makes sense to me. I mean, your upbringing was very unique. Honestly, if it was me, that story of you in the parade at 10 learning about racism for the first time, I think if I was your parents, I'd get on an airplane and go right back where we were before. Anyway.
But all that travel, and I want to say this, all that travel does not make me a better human being than people with less travel. But what it does is it gives me a better and broader perspective on humanity than people who have not been exposed to the different humanities around the world.
Right.
And unfortunately, according to our U.S. Census Bureau, less than 50% of Americans even own a passport. So we don't travel.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's sad. It's a big world out there.
It is. But, but even traveling within our own country, we don't even do that.
Yes. A lot of people even, never leave their area or region. And like you said, there's so much we can learn from being able to see other people and find connections to them.
Amen. Well, Daryl, you've come closer in closer contact with more members of the KKK than certainly us or anybody else I know for that matter. And you intentionally continue to do so. I think I just want to ask why. I probably know the answer having learned a lot about you, but I want to hear you answer that question. And then I'm going to ask you one more with your...
Why? Because these people are our fellow Americans.
Yeah.
And it's time that we get to know each other. If we're gonna be a great country, we all are gonna be great together, because everybody from every background has contributed to the fabric, the quilt of this country. And it's time that we get to know one another and stop competing with one another, but start cooperating and collaborating with one another and take this country where it needs to go. It was very, in the beginning, you were talking about communication and how sitting down and talking about things is the resolution for conflict. Yes. Now, when I was in high school, and I went to one of the best, in the county, that's one of the best counties of public high schools in the country. And we did not learn that we had Japanese internment camps in this country for Japanese Americans. Now, today, it's in the textbooks.
Yeah.
All right. Why didn't we talk about it back then so we don't have to play catch up? Let's resolve the thing here and now when it's happening, not wait till it becomes history that we hide for a few decades and then, oh yeah, we need to talk about this. Well, how come I didn't learn it when I was a kid, when I was in school? I'm not in school anymore, and I'm learning history.
Right. Or there's an awful lot we're not learning about right now.
That's my whole point.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided to do this.
Yeah, okay, that's a good answer. So I asked you this before one time when we were face to face, actual in person. But
we gotta do that again sometime.
I would love that. I really would. But does fear ever come into it for you? Because I got to tell you, if I'm at a KKK meeting where they're burning crosses, whether I'm invited or not, I'm going to be shaking in my boots.
No, fear does not come into it. Really? For me, I've never been somebody who is frightened easily, and this may sound counterintuitive, but this is how I look at it. If I see somebody walking up the sidewalk and I'm walking down the sidewalk and they're wearing a robe and a hood, I know exactly where that person's coming from. I know how to deal with that person. you know. But if I get pulled over 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm coming home from a music gig that I'm performing or something, I'm the only one in my car and there are no other cars on the street, and those flashing lights go on in my rearview mirror, that to me is a little more frightening, because I know where that man in that uniform with the badge and gun is supposed to be coming from. But is he?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's eye-opening.
Definitely.
And I understand it. Thank you for answering
Which is,
that
you know,
question.
which is why, you know, people who look like me, you know, when we turn 16 years old and we get our driver's license, our parents, and I'm sure you've heard about it, but you never heard it because you didn't grow up as a Black person, you know, when you were 16 years old.
Right.
But you've heard about the talk.
Yeah.
And we all, including myself, get the talk. You know, it's not if you get pulled over, it's when you get pulled over. Okay, because it's going to happen. And it's happened to me more times than I can count. Okay. Sometimes justifiably, I was speeding. Okay. But other times, no. For no other reason than the color of my skin. I've been there, done that, right? Same thing happened to my father. You know, we live, you know, when we came back from overseas, the last time that I went over with my parents, we were the second Black family in our neighborhood. Everybody else was white. And my father kept getting pulled over. They thought he walked into the neighborhood and drove out with somebody's car. Okay. And so I got sat down when I turned 16, got my driver's license, and I got the talk. And, you know, he told me, you know, when you get pulled over, do not argue with the police. Just keep your hands on the steering wheel. Be polite. Even if they are wrong, don't point it out. Take the ticket, sign the ticket, and we will fight it in court. That's how you stay alive.
Yeah.
That was the message I was getting. Does that mean that all cops, you know, are out to get you? No, absolutely not. But that is a safeguard, because you don't know where somebody is coming from.
Right.
When you wear that robe and that hood, you know exactly where they're coming from.
It's a really good point.
You know, and so that's, you know, that's why I say, you know, I'm not really too concerned about that. I realize, you know, there's danger, and I've had my share of violence where people have attacked me, you know, with robe and hood, or who belong to a clan, and I've had to fight, which is unfortunate, but I prevailed. But that's not something, you know, that I seek to do or that I want to do, but I'm not afraid to do it.
Wow. So going off of that, through your work, you've discovered a successful method of transforming potential or enemies into friends. Would you please share with us, you know, and our listeners, like how you've done that?
Absolutely. Through my travels to 63 countries on 6 continents, and having performed in all 50 states here in our country, I've been exposed, as I said, to a wide multitude of people. And one, you know, while we may look different, speak different languages, or have different accents in this country, Southern accent, New York accent, Midwest accent, etc., have different religions, I've come to one conclusion. We all have something in common that is the most powerful thing that we have in common. And that is that we all are human beings. And as such, true, we take it for granted, but it's true. As such, every human being that you encounter, no matter how close or how far away from you, wants these 5 core values in their lives. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be respected. We all want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly and truthfully. And we all want the same things for our family as anybody else would want for their family. And if we can just learn to apply, regardless of the situation, apply those 5 core values, or any of those 5 values, when we find ourselves in an adversarial situation, or in a culture or society in which we are uncomfortable or unfamiliar, or in this case, we're talking about fearful, I will guarantee that your navigation of that situation, that culture, that society will be much more positive, much more smooth, and much more productive. And that is how I've been able to transform a lot of these people. What happens is, you know, when they see me, you know, their wall goes up, their blood pressure rises. I am the enemy. Because of me is why they joined the Klan. People like me. okay, or Jewish people, or gay people, or anybody that they don't like who's not like them.
Right.
All right. So I'm the enemy. But in most cases, when they are face to face with the enemy, there is conflict. It's yelling and screaming. It may even escalate into violence. All right. I'm sitting there allowing them to spew all their hatred and vitriol. Tell me that I have a small brain. Black people are born with a small brain. And the larger the brain, the more intelligence. The smaller the brain, the lower the IQ. And I'm told that this is the Klan leader telling me this, that this is evidenced by the fact that Black children score lower on the SAT scores every year, Scholastic Aptitude Test scores every year, than white kids. And this is evidenced by statistics. This person telling me this is 100% correct, that Black kids in this country do score lower overall, all right, compared to white kids on the SATs. And now, the stats tell you that, but they don't tell you why.
Right.
Okay. And he doesn't care about why. Yeah, he already thinks that way, that I'm inferior. And here is the evidence that backs it up. So he needs to look no further. Right. So I have to go in and explain to him why. Most Black kids in this country go to school where? In the inner city. Most white kids go to school in the suburbs. Inner city schools, fact, not opinion, are not as qualified, as not up to date as suburban schools. Black kids who go to school in the suburbs can score just as high, if not higher, than some of the white kids. White kids who go to school in the inner city can score just as low, if not lower, than some of the Black kids. It has absolutely nothing to do with the color of the student's skin or the size of the student's brain, but it has everything to do with the educational system in which that child is enrolled. And that's why each of you, when you were kids, or now that you're adults and perhaps have kids of your own, when you move to a neighborhood or your parents move to a neighborhood, the first thing they want to know is, what is the school system like in this neighborhood? Because they want a good education for their kids. And if the school system is not that good, and you can afford to move to a neighborhood that has a better school system, that's where you're going to move. It might cost a little more money, but that's where you're going to move for the future of your kids.
Right.
And and if you all are very successful, and the reason being, you should thank your parents for choosing those school systems for you. And I thank my parents for the same thing. So that's what I have to explain to him. But he will not be listening to that if I don't hear him out first.
Right.
Right? I just say, no, you're wrong. Blah, blah, blah. The wall goes up, the ears get shut. All right. So I have to absorb all the vitriol. All right. And when that is done, he's kind of curious because, like, how come this guy didn't push back? He didn't say anything. What's wrong with him? He's Black. I just told him he's inferior and blah, blah, blah. So now he's curious. So his ears are open.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. Everybody wants to be heard and everybody wants to be respected. Understand, I did not respect what he said about, my brain size or whatever, but I respected his right to say it. And we all need to get over our egos. Just sit back, know who you are. Okay. Well, was I offended by the fact that he implied that I had a small brain, and a few minutes earlier he was telling me that that Black people are prone to crime because there are more Blacks in prison than white people. And the statistics and data show that as well, and he is correct on that, but not for the reason he thinks.
Right.
There's an imbalance in our judicial system. So he's called me a criminal. He's called me stupid, essentially. A lot of people would get triggered by that and start pushing back.
Yeah.
I don't push back. Why? Is what he is saying offensive? Yes, absolutely, it's offensive. Am I offended by it? Absolutely not. And why am I not offended by it? Because I know who I am. All right. He just walked in the room 5 minutes ago to be interviewed. He's seeing me for the first time, and he's making his assessment on seeing the color of my skin.
Yeah.
Right. Now, so why should I, and what he is saying is a lie. Okay. A, he didn't go to high school. I do my research before I interview these people as much as I can. I have a college degree. But if I were to go and say, well, you barely made it out of high school, I got a college degree, up goes the wall, ears get plugged.
So I don't go on the attack. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I simply defend myself. You know, if my mother or father were to say, you know, Daryl, you know, you're kind of prone to crime because, you know, you stole $5 out of my purse, you know, or you're kind of dumb, you know, you got some D's and F's on your report card. Maybe I would believe them. They brought me into this world. They raised me. But somebody who walks in the room 5 minutes ago, sees me for the first time, all he sees is my skin color, and he's going to make these assertions. No. It's like I said, you know, I can't judge every police officer, you know, that pulls me over before I talk to them. But I have it in my background, in the back of my head, you know, be respectful, do this and do that, you know, and so you can get home alive.
Right. Can you do the 5 things one more time that we should all?
Everyone wants to be loved.
Yes.
Everyone wants to be respected.
Yes.
Everyone wants to be heard.
Yes.
We all want to be treated fairly and truthfully. And we want the same things for our family as anybody else wants for their family.
So
health and prosperity and, you know, success.
Okay. Love that. And so valuable to keep in my head when I'm going through life and meeting different people. Shifting gears just a tiny bit. We try to, on every one of these episodes, tell our listeners what's surprising about our guest. We often say that when we book a speaker, we learn a lot of the best stuff once we've worked with them, which is true. So we're trying to give people a little peek behind the curtain, buyers particularly, who may book you in the future. And I would have to say that with you, in my opinion, it's the way that you show up. This isn't about a speech for you. In fact, I think you are the message, which is very different, by the way, than just about any speaker I've ever booked before. We want our listeners to know that everything you do is about promoting communication that resolves conflict and promotes peace. And wow, that's about all I have to say to that. So,
you know, Kris, it troubles me a great deal that we call ourselves the greatest nation on the face of this earth. Don't get me wrong. I love my country. I'm patriotic. Okay. We do have flaws, but they can be fixed and we work on that. All right. But that statement bothers me. Perhaps it should be revised for now to say we are the greatest country on the face of this earth technologically. All right. Because we Americans created the technology to put a man on the moon. Right. And while Neil Armstrong was up there walking around talking about one small step for man and one small and a giant leap for mankind, we were able to talk to astronaut Neil Armstrong live, all the way from Earth, all the way to the moon via satellite radio phone. We invented that technology. Think about that. Long before cell phones were even thought of. All right. Everybody that you know, that I know, and that Channing knows, have cell phones, have email. You hit a few numbers, hit a few words, hit send. You're talking to people right next door in the next state over, all the way across the country, or on the other side of the planet, Australia, wherever. We invented that technology. Why is it that we can talk to people as far away as the moon, anywhere on the face of this planet, but yet many of us have difficulty talking to the person who lives right next door because he or she is a different color, a different religion, a different persuasion, a different whatever. It seems to me that before we can call ourselves the greatest, maybe our ideology needs to catch up to our technology. And once we get them both up there, then we can truly talk about how great we are. You know, we are living in the 21st century. And we, you know, these are space age times. We need to stop thinking with Stone Age minds. The greatest tool, weapon that is available to dismantle racism, anti-Semitism, discrimination, whether it's against the elderly, whether it's against, you know, whatever, the greatest weapon that we have is free. It's not, it doesn't cost any money, but yet it remains the most underused. It's called conversation.
Yeah.
That
we're trying to
beautiful.
Put a little dent in that today.
Absolutely. I
A little tiny one.
love what you just said about getting our ideology up with our technology. Like, we've been pushing so hard on technology. I think we've been forgetting about these core basics we have that are life-changing.
And speaking of, of walking on the moon, I mean, I'm sure at some point, not in our lifetime, perhaps, but maybe a few lifetimes later, maybe our great-grandchildren's lifetime, there'll be people walking around on the moon, people from Earth, because, the technology will be there to do that, mass.
Mhm.
And what are we going to do? Colonize the moon and still have the old Stone Age mentality? We're going to create another planet of discrimination and racism and anti-Semitism.
I hope not. That's
Well,
depressing.
unless you clean up your own backyard first,
Yeah,
you got nobody else, nobody to talk to about cleaning up their front yard.
Ain't that the truth?
Daryl, you just made me think, is there, with people who maybe have had their blinders on, have had their earmuffs on, really just focused on talking to people that think like them, look like them, how would you recommend that they start to open their minds, or they start to have the conversation with one another? How do you recommend people to do that?
The best way, in my opinion, to do that is organically. Sometimes it requires legislation to force somebody to do something, allow people to ride in the front of the bus or things like that. Okay. And yes, there is a place for that. There is time for that. Okay. But organically, and I call it walking across the cafeteria, which can be done in person, or it can be done virtually, like you and I are doing right now. I've noticed that in many, many metropolitan cities in this country, for example, where I live right here, right outside of Washington, D.C., or Baltimore, my hometown, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York. These are diverse communities, and they have diversity in their schools, in their workplaces. People may be working on the same project together from all different backgrounds, and they may even be sharing the same cubicle. And they get along fine in their work environment. But what happens at 12 noon? Everybody goes downstairs to the cafeteria to have lunch. Mm-hmm. But then what happens there? Boom, boom, boom. They self-segregate. Blacks sit with blacks. Hispanics sit with Hispanics. This group sits with this group. All right. Does that mean that they're racist or something? No, not necessarily. People tend to be more comfortable around familiarity. People who speak the same language or go to the same church or, whatever. All right. And that's fine. But I say this, once or twice a week, get up from your comfort lunch group and walk across the cafeteria and sit at somebody else's table with whom you don't normally sit. All right. Now, obviously, this probably won't happen, but if it does, somebody says, hey, you don't belong here. Go back to your table. There's a problem, and it must be addressed and have that conversation to resolve it. Okay. But that probably won't happen. But you do that, you have a lot to teach the people that you're sitting with, and you have a lot to learn from them.
Yep.
And in the process, you will make a new friend, and you will come to your own conclusion. Wow, that person comes from a whole different country, a whole different culture, but at the end of the day, he or she is not really any different than me. We want the same things, etc. And next thing you know, you got a friend.
Yeah. I have seen this happen in my life just by trying to put myself in different environments, different situations that I wouldn't normally be in. And it was so eye-opening to me how we can just go through life if we're not mindful of that, then you're not opening yourself up to so much great conversation.
Let me tell you a true story, okay? Before I said that, okay, that's how you do it physically. Virtually, like we're doing right now, you might work for a company and your company has a branch of itself in another state. Right. Or you're doing business with another company in another state, so you contact your counterpart, whether he works for your company or he works with another company in which you're doing business. Usually, you're on Zoom calls or Google Meet or whatever, Teams or whatever those things are that people get together across the country and meet and discuss their job and their business. All right. Contact one of your counterparts somewhere else who's not like you, and say, hey, can we set up a Zoom meeting or something after work, just to chit chat a little bit, and you get on that Zoom meeting. So you married, you have kids. What does your wife do? What do your kids do? How old are they? Oh, well, I have a daughter the same age, 12 years old. Blah blah blah, so forth and so on. You find you have a lot in common with this person that you've been communicating with, but you don't know them behind the job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like you're going behind the mic, right? Go behind the job.
Love it.
Right? And learn about them, and you will have a new friend, and they will learn about you. This is what's so important. Very, very important. Now, I've lost the train of thought that I was going to tell you in a second. What did you say, Channing? You say it happened in your own life.
Yes, just putting myself in, purposely trying to put myself in different situations and environments than I would have, just to open myself to other kinds of communities.
Yeah.
So
it will pop back in my head.
In the meantime, our mutual friend Tony suggested that we ask you this question. Are you ready?
Uh-oh. Tony, I don't know.
I know. Tony. Yeah. You sat across from people who've told you you're inferior and that you're lazy, all kinds of horrible things. How do you keep the conversation going when people are that nasty?
Because, technically, yes, it is nasty. Yeah. Okay, but to me, it's not even that. It's a lie. Mm-hmm. Why would I be upset about a lie? Mm-hmm. This person doesn't even know me.
Yep.
I'm inferior. I'm prone to crime because I'm Black. I'm lazy because Black people, all they do is look for a free handout and get on welfare.
I get where you're going.
Yeah. So, listen, I've never been on welfare. I don't have a criminal record. My SATs got me into college. I graduated college. So why would I be offended by somebody telling me all things that obviously are not true? So whenever you go into these situations, that's why I say do your background homework as much as you can. Realize who you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Do not allow yourself to get triggered. They don't know you.
Right.
They don't know you.
Yourself part.
Exactly. Because if you go into a situation like that with an adversary and you don't know who you are, mm-hmm. they're going to tell you who you are. Yeah. And you're likely to walk out of there believing them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a frightening thought. So I think we got to wrap it up. I think
this just popped in my head. Well, what I was going to tell you. Okay. True story. Okay. I give a ton of lectures a year, sometimes corporate, sometimes college, all across the board. 2 to 3 out of every 10 lectures I give, it most often, it happens in corporations, but most often on college campuses, this will happen. I'll do the lecture, I'll do a Q&A, I'll show some Klan robes and things like that. At the end of the lecture, I'm done. People are leaving, but some students still have questions, so they come to the podium and talk to me, or they want to see one of the robes up close. Fine. 2 or 3 out of 10 times, there's going to be some student hanging in the back of the auditorium, not doing anything. And I've come to realize what's happening. That person is waiting for the crowd to go away. Yeah. When the crowd dissipates and I'm just there by myself putting things back in my bag, he or she comes down and they're like, look around, make sure nobody's within earshot. Say, I enjoyed your lecture. My mother is in the Klan, or my dad's a neo-Nazi. I'm from wherever they're from, and I was raised that way. And now I'm here at University of fill in the blank, and my boyfriend is Jewish, or my girlfriend is Black, or my best friend is gay. And I can't go home and tell my parents or bring them home with me. They will kill me. They will disown me. And I don't want to tell my friend because they'll drop me. So they got this secret that is burning an ulcer on their chest. They have to get it out. And I'm the perfect person for them to speak with. Okay. I totally get it. They come from some homogenous area where everybody cheers the same sports team, votes for the same political candidate, swims in the same neighborhood swimming pool, etc. Right. And now they go off and go to college. And guess what? The neighborhood and high school that they went to doesn't come with them. But on that college campus, there are neighborhoods and high schools from all over the country and all over the world. They're seeing things they never saw in their neighborhood. They're realizing that Jewish people don't have horns and Black people don't have tails and gay people are okay and whatever else. How do you go home and tell your parents that, or your best friends from high school? Your parents wanted you to go get an education, but not that education, right? So how do you do that? And that's what we talk about, because once you're exposed to that, you can't deny it.
Yeah.
You cannot unring the bell once it's rung.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Well, thank God they've got someone like you, Daryl, to talk to, because wow. That
And the
you're
live
so right.
site
I witnessed that. I can remember that when I was in college. And, it was, I'm absolutely positive I didn't do a good job I listened to that person, but, I hadn't had that experience that they had. And I don't understand the kind of hate that particular person's parents carry around with them. Anyway, thank you for bringing that up, because I think there are a lot of people that we need to remember that, you kind of forget about the kids of people who are carrying the hate flags in their life. And that's all. These kids are brought up, they're taught this.
Exactly. Yes. And what is
taught.
learned can be unlearned.
Yeah.
Okay? And the role that you all play is equally important to the things that I do, because how does my message get out?
Yeah.
You all are putting it out, and that's very, very important. So, some people are not comfortable being on the front line like I am. I can never go to a Klan rally. I can never sit down with a neo-Nazi or whatever. That's fine. You don't have to be on the front line. Let people who are comfortable, like myself or others, do that work for you. But you need to be on some kind of line, whether it's on the sideline, cheering us on, or doing some periphery stuff to help us, or behind the mic, behind the line, promoting what I'm doing or what others are doing in this direction. We all need to work together as a team. Front line, back line, sideline, online.
Yeah.
You are amazing.
Pick your line and get on it.
We got him riled up now.
I'm ready for your campaign. Let's go. Wow. Daryl.
Channing, I'll let you take this next wrap up.
Well, we are truly so honored to have you. You're the first guest that we had and we needed to have again. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For part 2. You are truly making this world such a better and smarter place. And we are so grateful for you. And we are excited to continue getting your message out there.
I'm just trying to expand my small brain. That's all.
Oh, yeah, right. The biggest I know. And please, to our viewers, listeners, please keep Daryl in mind when opportunities arise. Like he said, up-leveling our ideology alongside technology. That was brilliant. I'm so excited for these sound bites to really share with people. So thank you so much for being here with us today again. Really.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks to both of you. And friends, do yourself a favor and go listen to some Chuck Berry, paying close attention to the master at the keys.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thanks, Daryl. We'll see you,
Daryl.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Awesome. Well, that's a wrap. We'll be back very soon with George Campbell, which we're very excited about. And so
very excited.
We will get ready for that. But until then, thank you for joining us for part 2.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.